This is Between Hook Sets. I'm Chase and Walter from In Through the Outdoors with my partner in slime, Kurt Underhill from the Fishing Crew. Hey, how's it going?
Good, buddy. Yourself?
Not too bad. Not too bad at all. I guess I should have set the hook. I should have had my shotgun out and pulled the trigger.
For tonight, we're going to be talking some ducks. We're going to get into the fall time of year and transition a little bit from what we're usually talking about fishing, but that's why we call the show Between Hook Sets, because we do a lot of things between the hook sets. So not only talk fishing, we can talk hunting, and we can talk all things outdoors. So tonight is going to be awesome. We've got a couple great guests on, amazing waterfall people for the show tonight. I'm excited. I'm actually sitting in Memphis, Tennessee with a duck hunter, Mr. Trent Dirks, down here. We just got in this morning. So, yeah, pretty sweet, pretty excited for tonight. So,
yeah, let's bring in the guys and let's talk ducks. Or maybe we'll talk waterfowl. We might talk geese too, because I think you see the geese in the background. I think Chris is one of those guys that chases the white fronts, and we've got photos and stuff. But let's get into it here. Sean Weaver and Chris Nicolai. Fellas, welcome.
How's it going, Brian?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Nice to meet you guys.
Great to see you guys too. Sean, you are super busy. I know that because I know you. But yep. I didn't think you'd have time to hang with us tonight. I'm so glad that you did.
Luckily, it's after dark, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or something like that.
Thank
the scout is over.
And, of course, Dr. Chris Nicolai. Chris, it's great to have you, too. Sorry, we kind of got a hold of you. We backdoored that and surprised you on Facebook. But good to have you here. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries at all. I'm always up for chatting with folks about waterfowl.
Well, let's start from the top. Sean, you and Chris know each other quite well. We've been working with Delta Waterfowl trying to get Chris on the show, and I just figured I'd reach out to you. So we've got Trent Dirks in the background, and we're going to talk a little Delta Waterfowl. But I want each of you to give us a little background on where you came from and what you've done and what you're doing.
Well, I tell you what, when you called me about having Chris on the show, and you said, "Hey, we're thinking about having Chris on. Would you want to join with?" I don't know anyone that I personally have had longer, more extensive conversations with about that start with a simple question. Typically, it was for me writing an article, and it would start with, so tell me about, let's say, Thule geese, for example, and it ends 2 hours later because Chris can tell me all there is to know. And so, yeah, anytime I can talk to Chris and get to hang out and just talk geese and ducks, love it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty exciting. Just tell us a little bit about Meat Eater's Duck Lore. You did the duck lore thing, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I've done all kinds of, like, my whole career, I guess. My whole adult career has been anything waterfowl, right? I've guided ducks and geese and filmed them, photographed them, worked in the marketing category. And, with duck lore, I really wanted to make a freelance waterfowl show that was focused on kind of the educational aspect of waterfowl as much as just the killing, which is what we accomplished. Half the show was boat engines breaking down, but that's the real thing, right? Like that's what happens. You just end up with a bum motor one year and there's your show.
Yeah. Speaking of shows, I guess I knew you a little bit before the Grind Waterfowl TV. You and I got to work. I guess I shouldn't say you and I got to work together. I helped you out on season 7 of the Grind Waterfowl TV, so I got to know you a little bit closer there.
Yeah, you did the VO work, Brian.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, did a little voiceover work. I didn't have the big voice though, so I didn't keep the job for too long. But I'll tell you what, it was a lot of fun. But I was always nervous. I'm like, am I going to do this right? Am I going to do it good enough? And it was an absolute blast and a great time. And Chris, tell us about you. You've had to sit there quite quiet for a little bit, and the way it sounds, you can talk up a storm too.
Yeah, I can talk forever about waterfowl. I'd have to guess 95% of my waking hours are that. But yeah, no, I grew up in Minnesota, got hooked into waterfowl from family and friends that talked about it. And then my uncle and I figured it out ourselves. I ended up going to college, figuring out about wildlife management, and then stuck with that till the 25th grade and did graduate work on nesting black brant in Western Alaska. I did both my master's and PhD on that. Got a job with Fish and Wildlife Service for 10 years. I was out in Nevada and California as the federal migratory bird, game bird guy, I guess. And then this position with Delta opened up, which was perfect. I'd been starting a lot of projects with graduate students on my own and everything. And sure enough, cool position opened up where all I get to do is work with graduate students. So helping train the next group of duckologists. So it's pretty cool getting to work. I do a lot of work with both ducks and geese, which not very many people get to do. So it's pretty cool to be able to overlap how those two different groups of birds benefit hunters.
Yeah, and speaking of hunters, I got in an argument with one the other day, and I don't suppose he's listening right now, but maybe you can help me end the argument. We were talking about mallards, and I said I grew up in Rugby, North Dakota, right up there along the Canadian border, and when those big northern mallards came down, they were the most fun things to shoot. They were huge, and the guy's like, there's no such thing as a northern mallard. A mallard's a mallard. I know. I said, I know that. But these northern mallards they're huge. They're bigger than most mallards. So can you explain, I don't know, some old guy, the guy's dad's, I don't know, up in that central part of North Dakota near the Canadian border called them northern mallards. Is that a thing?
That's what I got told growing up. So
yeah.
No, I hate to burst your guys' bubble, but my take on that one is all you're seeing is some birds that are got a good old shot of testosterone in their system. They're pumped up. They're ready to get going. So, yeah, you're just running into birds that have probably been there or and it's not like they go above the Arctic or above the boreal forest or anything. I mean, they might be up 100 or 200 miles north of where you're, spending time and all that, but they're right there. It's just all of a sudden you're seeing the super dudes cranking out their testosterone, their bills changing color. They're, in that pre-migration fattening mode. And yeah, they look a little different, but all that's happening is some seasonal changes, right during hunting season. You got birds that opening day by, let's say September 1 in Manitoba, that today they do not look like the same bird that you saw opening day.
Yeah, okay, well, that kind of solves it. I love it when I'm wrong.
I'm still going to call them northern mallards because there's nothing, I don't know. That's always been what I've been told they are, and they're big green-headed, bright beaks, bright feet. I love it.
Yeah, those big old red legs. I think people refer to black ducks more like that, but I think they're both the same. Yeah, it's basically you're just seeing these birds that are pimped out, ready to start courting here pretty soon, and yeah, they just look way more impressive than the bird with the less bright legs and just not as puffed up yet.
And that's another thing that to build on that, what Chris just said, that I don't know if quite enough people understand is how early that courting process starts with ducks. January in Arkansas, those ducks are paired up. It starts way earlier than, May on the prairie.
Yeah, that's interesting too. I never ever paid attention to that when I was a kid. I was looking for every canvasback and redhead and ruddy duck I could find because I wanted one hanging on the wall. Never lucked out. I was a green head and a gadwall guy, and maybe a pintail from time to time. But I fell in love with all the different type of ducks, and I actually have I think it's from 1975. So it's the poster from I think Remington that has all the different ducks on it. And it's one of my absolute favorite things to do, especially as a kid. I became a green wing with Ducks Unlimited, and I was incensed. I just was. And then unfortunately college came along and I moved out. ended up in Fargo and just never found a duck hunting friend after that. But we were going to try to duck hunt a little bit this year. My buddy blew out his Achilles, so no duck hunting for me this year. But you guys, you guys go, you're diehard. I mean, it rain, snow, whatever. When I was a kid, or even people always say, it's a great day if you're a duck. Well, one thing I learned during the Grind Waterfowl TV, Sean, is that isn't it kind of a sunny day or a nicer day that is a little more conducive to duck hunting?
It's one of those things where like a little spit and rain and gray, people will say, oh, it's a ducky day. But personally, my experience is those days, most people struggle to hide well enough to kill any birds. That's a no wind day, especially when on those no wind, high gray skies days, rather roll over and go to bed. But you get sun and wind, or snow and wind. But when it's super calm, high gray, most people aren't going to spend enough time putting in a good hide to really perform on those days. But to each their own. I give me sun and wind personally.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because it was just different. It went against my grain from when I was a kid, but things changed. That was 40 years ago. Now you look at
now if you can give me 6 inches of snow like was coming in parts of the country this week, I'll take that. That's a good way to kill some birds.
I think there's a lot of people who would rather not have that 6 inches of snow. That is a big swath that's either in a winter storm warning or a winter storm watch. So things are going to change up north. Is that going to push the ducks down here a little bit quicker, or are they going to get going and not even stop?
Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been studying the weather today. Like I was saying, before the show, I just got back from Saskatchewan a day early just because last year my daughter and we have the same 4-day weekend we've been doing since we've moved here now. And last year we got stuck in Swift Current for 2 days because the one was closed with 24 inches of snow. So we didn't want that to happen. So we packed up and got out of there a little quicker. And, it's interesting watching this band. I mean, the temperatures are the bad thing. I mean, the snow's coming, but the temperatures is what kills the habitat. You got field feeding stuff, but you've got, all the birds, they just need a place to roost. So, I mean, it was in the 60s just a week ago, and our water is warm, especially the big walleye type water. And so I think, things are going to move, like we were talking before too, the cranes, I'd be willing to bet 90% of the cranes are already south of us. I'd be willing to bet in the last 24 hours over 60% of the white fronts are south of us. But there's still a lot of, they're still up here. They're kind of those early birds, along with blue wings, shovelers, pintails. They're still up here. So I think this is going to get the more temperature-driven birds moving, and we're going to lose a lot of those early species for us. But I think, this weekend I'm going to go out and just focus on potchards and swans, and I think it's going to be dynamite. But what's going to, this morning when we woke up, it was 44 degrees, and that's probably the warmest forecast for our 10-day outlook. And, we're looking at single-digit lows and highs below freezing for the next 10 days. So it's going to be tough, and I bet you it's going to be a big flush, but not the total flush.
I suppose it'll freeze up some of the ponds and the little sloughs and that kind of thing. And
ponds are going to be done in 48 hours, I bet.
Yeah, that is that's too bad. You hope, you cross your fingers. We've had really good weather. You hope for a good long duck season, and it's probably just not going to happen. Especially for you guys up in North Dakota, maybe South Dakota a little bit different. Ray, if you want to go duck hunting, let's figure it out.
South Dakota's looking to shape out a lot better. I mean, yeah. I think that South Dakota and Minnesota are going to see a great timing on this, and the Minnesota guys will probably have a heck of a next couple of weeks on divers.
I think Eastern North Dakota should be in there too. Yeah, it's lining up perfect for those 3 regions.
So let me ask you guys this, because I live in Pierre, and it's been a big, point of talking over the years with the amount of geese we have in Pierre compared to the years past. And everybody there's everybody has their own theory. Is it the birds are getting pressured too much in Pierre, the not enough refuges? Is it the cropping patterns in North Dakota has changed the birds coming down, or is it the migration has shifted west? Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Because I hear it nonstop in Pierre, the different theories behind why we're not hosting 500,000 geese anymore in Pierre.
I've got a few different things personally, and Chris can actually talk to any research on that. But one is you absolutely have more. You have corn farther north and farther west than you've ever had it in history, right? You also have just water to your north and west that doesn't freeze, and also hasn't been getting the snow the last, let's say, 5-7 years that it typically used to, right? So like you've got areas in not necessarily North Dakota. North Dakota's been getting a lot of snow, but Montana and even Saskatchewan that to push those geese to Pierre, right? Their food source has got to get covered and covered heavy. And there's geese wintering in Montana and North Dakota too. And even was that last winter or 2 winters ago? There was geese still in Saskatchewan, honkers, till January. And so it's hard to push geese to Pierre, especially those urban birds. It's hard to push them if they've got open water and food.
And I have one buddy that, he says, unless North Dakota gets 18 inches of snow, we do not see birds here in Pierre. And he studied the, the patterns over the last, 15 years, the migration reports. He's looked at them. He's got it all charted out. And, I tend to lean his way because, there's a group of guys in Pierre, and an organization that I'm a part of is, we talk refuges, and refuges are great, but if we don't have birds using refuges, what, on the Missouri River, what is it, is it a point to keep them? Like, what's your thoughts on, going in more into that stuff?
Chris?
Yeah, well, I think I'd look at it a little bit different. We had more than 18 inches of snow last year. I think we had about 10 times that. And it ended up in Bismarck, a quarter of an inch from the all-time record, which sucked. No one likes being number 2, right? So given that, I mean, you get a big year like last year.
NDSU fans that.
What's that?
So tell them NDSU fans that.
No, yeah, exactly. So when you have a year like last year, it just biffed a bunch of those hypotheses that people are talking about while goose hunting, right? They're staying north. They're getting fed up there. And it's like, well, no, last year you pretty much had all those switches on that should have really benefited, Pierre hunters. So if you're not seeing it, it really makes me wonder, and I don't keep up on it too much, but, as the Canada, mid-continent temperate breeding geese, have their numbers just come back down to what management goals, closer to the wanted management goals. And I know, and I didn't look this up for this discussion, but I know many of those populations, many goose populations, are not at their maximum points that they were 10, 15 years ago now. So maybe, there is just a decrease in the population size. I can be completely wrong because I didn't look that up for this. And normally I don't pay attention to those numbers because usually, they've been very healthy. So, we always tend to pay attention to the ones that are hurting. So I don't know. I'd say another thing is just maybe there's not as many geese as you guys are used to, just due to, these management actions and, other things beyond harvest that have been implemented to help get these geese at more realistic management goals,
Yeah, I wonder because even my buddies back in rugby talk about the lack of snows. They were there by the millions, billions, I don't know. When we went up to the Dunseith area, up there a little bit further north of Rugby, those fields, those big, huge, wide open fields were full of snows and blues, and it was amazing. Hardly saw a Canada goose, maybe a few lessers, but very, very rare. And now they say they just aren't there. So I think the flyway, and I'm just guessing, did push to the west.
Well, on that though, like, habitat changes too, right? Like Sand Lake National Wildlife Refuge in South Dakota used to be one of the main stopping points for the snow goose migration. But something specifically with Sand Lake is that back when it was at its peak, they were grazing. They had cattle grazing on Sand Lake, and there was not the cattails to speak of. It was also a relatively new reservoir at the time compared to now, and so you see a change in the habitat of what that water and roosting is like, right? And Sand Lake just doesn't roost the snow geese now like it used to. I would venture to say that's more just habits and habitat changing than actually, a major shift in the migration. Because ultimately, you still, maybe a little west, but ultimately you have still the same giant groups of snow geese coming through South Dakota every year. They're just not stopping at the exact same body of water.
And, keep in mind too, when the duck reports come out in May, they also have the goose report attached at the end of it. And out of the 18 goose populations reported in there, I think 17 of them were decreased from last year. I think there's only one population increase. And then on top of that, a lot of the white goose guys, they've been claiming not claiming, they're showing for the last 10, 12 years, snows and Ross and even white fronts too are declining substantially. Snow geese might be half of the population sizes they were 10, 12 years ago. So, a lot of that stuff is very real. And, it's just hard to detect. When you see a big migration day, did you see the whole thing or did you only see half of it or, even less? So, it's hard to detect that. But the guys that are reporting on it, and population declines and mid-continent geese are a real thing these days, especially with the light geese.
Yeah.
So, Chris, I don't have my glasses on, but is that a Ross up behind you to your left?
I think that's a greater snow goose. Yeah. Okay. These are my birds that haven't made it into the office yet. I need a bigger office. I only got 40 mounts in there. I think Trent's been to my office before.
Oh my! So, do you have a hutch there somewhere?
I do not, but my dog is named Hutch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. Right here.
I think
Hutch.
That goose right there is actually an Aleutian cackler.
Oh, really?
Yep. Yeah, it's an Aleutian, a bunch of different brands, cinnamon. Yeah, I do my own taxidermy too. So these are the ones that haven't made it into the office. I need to build a shop so I can display them all.
So speaking of the different types of geese, I have an old guy that always tells me that way back in the day, there was a goose that stopped in Pierre and they called it the tall prairie goose. And it was about the size of a mallard. And it would be the first one down. Is that a thing? Is maybe that was the name they called it in Pierre? But he says you don't see them anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'd say you still see them, but you just don't call them that anymore. That's one of those things where just nomenclature changes over time. Like there's an old biologist, Harold Hansen, that wanted, hundreds of subspecies of Canada geese, and right now they split them into Canadas and cacklers with 11 subspecies. So, and then those 11 breed in like 28 different breeding populations at one point. And lately, there's been a lot of work to just simplify that. So there used to be a group of geese called the tallgrass prairie population, but I think they've been lumped into something else. And sorry, if I knew we were going to talk about this, I would have done some more homework. But I know they've been lumped into a bunch of other geese just to make management simpler. We don't want to keep splitting seasons and, I don't know. You guys are South Dakota types. That's the focus of this talk. You don't want to see what complex white-cheeked goose regulations can be. If you want to, go look at Oregon's regs, and you'll have an eye-opener for you.
Yeah, explain Oregon's regs a little bit there, Chris. They're pretty wild.
Yeah, they're awesome. I'm going to be there early February again to go see my little buddies. You got to keep in mind, I'm very partial to the Pacific Flyway. Spent over 25 years out there, and the West is the best. But so like over in Oregon, there's 7 populations of white-cheeked geese, one of which you can no longer shoot anymore. So you gotta get birds in close, you got to take a 50-question test. There used to be check stations with all these little localized quotas and everything. They did away with that and just said, nope, you just can't shoot them anymore. It's a population of 10 to 15,000 geese called duskies. And, by all accounts, they should probably be covered under the Endangered Species Act. But luckily, we've had a really good history of biologists, state and federal, and, researchers that have come up with really creative ways to not close that down. Because if you did, you'd have to drag all these other goose populations with you and shut them all down. The West is different. Like Sean was talking about, Thule white fronts, same thing, 10,000, 15,000 birds. You got another group of brant called the Western High Arctic brant, 10, 15,000 of them, but yet we can shoot all their lookalikes legally. So, we're pretty lucky when there's a game to play about being picky or not.
So how does
there's a balance there.
Yeah.
You talk about this subspecies of white front goose. How do you know that, what do they look like? I mean, what is this? Is it easy to pick out, or is it like you said, you have to land them, have a 50-point quiz and
well, that's certainly the case with the dusky, right? It's very small differences in look. And then the Thule white front is simply just a
big brown
goose.
white front.
Yep, it's bigger and browner. That's it. Yep. About what, 20%, Chris?
Yeah, Thules are tough, and then you get, juveniles versus adults, males versus females. But, the Thules are tough. I'd say the Duskies are a little bit easier. The Duskies are medium. They honk, which helps because most of that country is a lot of squeaky white cheek geese. So it's actually one honking that's a little smaller, but you'd be blown away at how dark they are. It's mid-continent guys. You think you shoot something dark, you ain't seen nothing yet. I mean, these are geese where their, black neck sock just smears right into their breast. It's not this stark, black sock, right up against, a pale chest. It smears into it, so they're a little easier to pick out. But a Thule, some of these birds, you need to pull out your calipers to get to the legal definition of them. It's actually how long their bills are.
Wow.
Okay.
So yeah, don't ask for complex goose rights, because there's some pretty good examples of where it's highly, and it's very successful. I got to give a lot of those Pacific flyway biologists from before my generation figured out how to make this work and still let hunters shoot the abundant geese while still conserving, the ones that will never grow to larger population sizes.
Wow. Yeah, that's mind baffling. I didn't know regs could get that tight on a duck or for duck hunters.
Well, that's what's really fun, having a position like this. There's not. Well, I bet you there's only handfuls of waterfowl biologists that actually get to look at things at a continental scale. You look at all your awesome state biologists, they pretty much, they'll talk about their flyway issues maybe. But, being able to jump flyways and compare and contrast how different flyways manage things is really neat to see, and you think, Pacific Flyway with 107-day ducks or waterfowl season with a 7-bird bag limit, you can shoot 7 greenheads a day out there. You can shoot 7 wood ducks a day. It's really neat to see how liberal some places are. There's some parts of Alaska you can shoot 10 pintails a day.
Wow.
Jeez.
Wow.
So why did they, let's talk about regulations. Why is Alaska the only place you can shoot harlequins now?
It's not.
It's
you
not.
Can shoot,
I thought
you can shoot a harlequin in South Dakota. Come on.
I mean, yeah, but like Washington and all the other states that you have a good chance at shooting a harlequin, you can't shoot them anymore.
Well, that's pretty much at the edge of their range. You can still go to BC and shoot them. You could target them in BC pretty good. But yeah, just to be honest, and since I don't work for a government agency anymore, overharvest in Washington was a problem, especially when you throw in a commercial component to it. And luckily, they have a good monitoring program, not perfect, but it's expensive to monitor wildlife. So they've done a pretty good job out there. They found some pretty neat correlations between how many they counted and how many people were reporting. And yeah, recently, the harvest went up and the population went down. And so they said, hey, we're tapping out for a little bit. We got to deal with this before it becomes a problem.
Yeah, I mean, to say more candidly, like, I don't work for an organization like Delta, right? Ultimately, what you ran into in Washington was it became trendy to go there and hunt with a select outfitter or two, a couple outfitters that really, and they're not a hard bird to shoot. It's not a super difficult bird to go hunt. And it went from this localized thing that some people did to a huge influx of people coming there to do it. And it was just way beyond what the management had ever had before.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I'll give credit. You guys are talking about, having a poster next, in your bedroom and learning all your duck species. I was the same way. And even raising my daughters, they were the same way. We had the poster up next to their bed. And when they were little, we tested every night, and they always struggled with 3 scoters, but they were slamming everything else at 3-4 years old. But, it is pretty neat. There's, and I won't name anyone at all. But, there's, one guy that's really good at getting the word out and helping people, book hunts for all these neat species. And then there's, some outfits that highlight the variety of species we have. And, at first I had some concerns too. It's like, oh, we're bringing a lot of interest to these species that maybe shouldn't take all this harvest. But I think it's also pretty cool. The trade-off is people are aware of a lot more of these birds now. People dream about harlequins and talk about them and want to go see them. And, it'd sure be a shame if we lost them. So I like that there's, a lot of discussions out there and interest in birds beyond Canada geese and mallards, because I'd be very depressed if that's all I saw every day. I thrive on, I'm more of a birder when I'm duck hunting. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like abundance, but I sure like the variety as well. But what it comes to is all of a sudden now it's got to get the managers to start thinking different than they did. And they have to be able to still let us, they have to, they're responsible to let us still do that, but we have to do it in a sustainable manner. And I think what you're seeing with the harlequins is, just the first thing of what's coming for the future. If we maintain this interest in a lot of species of waterfowl, it's, it just happens, and people got to collect some more data and respond to it.
Well, like I said, love to hear that side of it. The management is what stopped it, because, I dream of going to shoot a harlequin, and all you hear is, oh, you got to go to Alaska now, or, BC or wherever to hunt them, because you can't hunt them, in the lower 48s because they quit. Well, I don't know enough about them personally to know that they stop. Like Washington's pretty much the end of the flightway, and they got basically we're being over harvested down there. So they're doing the responsible thing to slow that down and build that population back up.
Yeah. I mean, you see it, on both ends of the thing. Think about snow geese in the late 90s when all of a sudden things went liberal. That was pretty cool. That went to a positive response. The harlequins are, a negative. Keep in mind, like emperor geese were closed for 32 years, and all of a sudden we're enjoying their open. We've had AP Canada geese, Atlantic population Canada geese in the Atlantic flyway shut down for 10 years for a while, almost shut down again. If you want things to stay stable, that means they're increasing half the time and decreasing half the time, right? So we gotta take those pluses with the minuses. They both have to happen, or we're going out of control, right?
Yeah, I agree. I hate to change the subject unless, Kurt, did you have something to add?
No, go ahead. No,
I just noticed that we're getting on to 35 minutes, and I want to talk a little bit about Delta waterfowl.
Yep.
So
Sean warned you. You ask a little question, and I'll give you a substantial answer. Eh?
Boys, we'll be here 3.5 hours if you want to.
Well, we need to have that conversation, because they're a great organization. I've got to know Trent over the last couple of years, and he's a and got to meet the CEO out in Pierre. And if you want to become a member, you can go to deltawaterfowl.org. Or now I just received my marketing agreement with Delta Waterfowl. So I'm promoting them as well. So you can click on the Delta Waterfowl banner on my website at chaseandwalter.com as well. So if you're interested in becoming a member while we're talking, and Chris incites you to do such a awesome thing, then Trent would be very happy if you go become a member of Delta Waterfowl. So tell us a little bit about the organization, how you're into it. And I know, Sean, you hang out with the guys a lot, so we'll let you talk about Delta Waterfowl as well.
Yeah, I can give a 10,000 foot view of it. So, we're an organization with 4 big focuses going on right now. We got the research that I'm involved with. We got duck production, which is a lot of, adding some toolboxes to the waterfowl management scene with, hen houses and nest predator control. We got policy work, and then we got the hunter retention, R3 stuff going on. So those are the 4 big things. And it's cool with the research part I have. I get to help those 3 pillars get themselves better while we still do, just good in-house research. And pretty much almost all of our research, we've got a long history. We're about 111, 115 years old now, and a long history of training waterfowl professionals. So yeah, it's a lot of, training the folks that'll come behind us.
Yeah, and I'm fortunate enough. I sit on the Pierre Delta. I'm the vice president of the Pierre chapter of Delta Waterfowl, and it's a great organization. And this is perfect timing we have you on, because I was sitting at another organization, not anything to do with ducks, but another bird organization banquet last Thursday night, and a guy next to me kind of started bad mouthing Delta, and I just sat back and I just was quiet. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm over Delta Waterfowl. They try to tell us it takes $40,000 to clear an acre of land from predators. Why aren't they buying land?" And I just kept my mouth shut. I didn't want to get into it there. And I wanted to say, "Bud, you're a little wrong. Delta does way more than clear 1 acre of land with 40 grand.
Yeah, 1 acre is pretty dang small. Yeah, I mean, and you got me wondering now if we've actually eaten dinner once. I remember one time I was going through Pierre. My daughter and I were going to Nebraska to go decoy some prairie chickens, and there's a whole bunch of you guys at a bar one night, and
Yep.
I knew you guys are all there, so we swung by and had dinner with everybody. So maybe we have crossed paths.
Yes, we have.
Yep. So yeah, but no, like I said earlier, some of our predator management and hen houses are really neat additions to the toolbox. Okay, so we go around and we have as wildlife managers, we have a long history of acquiring land and turning it into waterfowl production areas, federal refuges, state wildlife management areas. In Canada, we got those Ducks Unlimited Canada parcels that are very similar to our WPAs. But they graze them, they burn them, they plant them, they spray them, they do a bunch of things. But we found over the years, if you look at nest success on there, it actually stays quite low. In a lot of cases, it's in the low single digits. But just like grazing or burning, bring another toolbox into it, predator removal, and all of a sudden you can make that expensive land that we probably not going to buy much more of just due to land prices. We can make it more productive, and we're taking those low single digit nest success estimates up into the 40% range, and that's a really important tool. Go for it, Sean.
I think it's important to also mention there, because this is a rabbit hole you can go very far down that Chris and I have gone down together, talking nest success and nest predation. Is when he says single digit nest success, that's of 100 nests that would be on said ground, you're talking less than 10 even hatch an egg. That's not that's not saying they hatch 12 eggs, right? And then you talk partial nest loss, etc. And forgive me if I'm wrong on this, Chris, but to maintain population, we need to be somewhere around 15%, right?
Exactly. So yeah.
So you've got land out there that's bought and paid for by either donors like us, right? Bird stamp or duck stamp purchasers, taxpayers, etc. Right? You've got all this land out there that is being bought and used for supposedly nest and waterfowl production, but then it's actually a net negative, or it's not really, it's not a sustainable amount of nests that it's putting back into the landscape without some predator management.
Yep.
Or
Yeah.
hen
So
houses.
we couldn't make ducks without this grass on the landscape, and the state, almost all the states send state duck stamp dollars to Canada, via, Ducks Unlimited Canada to purchase grass. And, we do work up there, and about the only grass for birds you find up there is that stuff that all these state organizations contribute to. Very similar to our WPAs. And, we got it. We try to make it better with plantings and grazings and all that, but you're still not getting your bang for your buck until you enhance that nest success. It's just, it's a big tool, and we're proud of these efforts that we do to help increase the nest success. At least we got the habitat, but we got to make it better if we want to make ducks.
Awesome. So, Trent, anything on Delta waterfowl as long as you're sitting there and haven't had a chance to talk at all?
No. No, Delta's doing great work. Everything from hunter recruitment, the research, the nest success, everything. Doing a lot of great work, and keep it up.
Awesome. All right. So we're kind of getting close to the end of the show here, and the two of you know way more about ducks and duck hunting than any of us in the room. So are we leaving anything out? Is there something when we started doing this, did you have something off the top of your head that I hope they talk about this, I hope they ask about that? Have we left anything on the table?
I've got a couple things, and
Okay.
so no, really, I guess my leaving message I would have with people is I saw one comment come in from somebody about what would I leave kids with as far as knowledge and information about ducks and how to make that more special. I would say that one of the things that I am more passionate about and want to see change more with waterfowl and waterfowl, I guess not the industry perspective, but just the aggregate of people that waterfowl hunt, is more respect and love for the diversity of all of it, and just enjoying all of it. There's a lot of people out there that they think it's not a success if they don't go shoot limits of greenheads, or they think it's not a success if they're not shooting limits of drakes. And I'm telling you what, my favorite hunts a lot of the time are a mess of blue wings early season, or when you get on one of those perfect little coontail ponds that the gadwall and widgeon are just thick in, right? And they're on those snails and freshwater shrimp and what have you. It's just enjoy in the aggregate all the different environments you can learn about, the food sources that these ducks eat and geese, etc. Just enjoying the learning. Okay, why widgeon tend to like this spot? Why is it pintails like this spot? Why is it the redheads like this? And take that for what it's worth. I love a big fat greenhead. We all do, but duck hunting is so much better, and it's even so much more fun and enjoyable when you have the same love and respect for a good redhead pond as a good teal pond, as a good lesser Canada feed, etc. So that's one thing I would leave. And then last is, Delta has specific ways that they do predator management. They've done a lot of research in how to best manage a chunk of land for predators and nest raiding predators. So go donate, go contribute, go help fund that. That being said, if that's not enough, go take part yourself. Do some predator management yourself on, raccoons and skunks, and turn that into a springtime fun thing. There's nothing more fun than calling raccoons during the raccoon rut and March or April. I mean, if you haven't seen it, look it up. But
yeah, look up Rick Paulette's Last Stand when he was down in Kansas. If you have not seen that with Tricky Ricky the Raccoon, if you've not seen that on YouTube, you have to go watch it.
just so you know, Kurt, I filmed that show for almost 5 years.
Okay, so yeah, when he was calling him in, and he was like double barrel stagecoach gun 5 yards away, blowing up raccoons, is the coolest video I've ever seen. I hope that was amazing.
Hey, as long as we're laughing.
Oh, that was a rough day. That was a couple of weeks ago. Blown tire on the side of the highway.
Oh no, I saw that and I thought, oh wow, just your luck.
Oh, I've got that luck. Listen, you want to see vehicle problems? Spend 10 minutes with me.
Well, I want to show this one picture because this is one of my favorite screenshots from the Grind Waterfowl TV. And I tried to get a little bit better screenshot of the dog's mouth open just before it grabbed that duck. That was such a great shot. You had a lot of great camera work in the Grind Waterfowl TV.
Thank you.
Great job there. I did hear a little bird told me that you might help film something in the fishing industry. I hope that's true. We'll leave it at that though. But I hope it's true. If that's the case, there are going to be a lot of happy fishermen out there. That's all.
I gotta say right now, my game, I'm back in the marketing world. So
you are.
I haven't had a camera in my hands for a while.
Well, how about Max? Where's he at?
He's still running around with a camera doing Max things.
Yeah. All right, fantastic. Well, Chris, we don't want to leave you hanging there. It looks like you had a great sandhill crane hunt. Was that this year? Is it October or of this year?
Yeah, it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So, yeah, I mean, like Sean was talking, I enter hunting season as a way to get meat for my family for the year. So, I don't want to eat the same thing over and over again with, that a recipe for that and a recipe for this. So, we target some birds. Like when I lived out west, it was really neat. Here, yeah, go get the cranes while the cranes are abundant. Go get the white fronts and the white fronts are abundant. Like I said, we're turning to potchards this weekend, so get the waders out and have some fun. So, no,
Chris, give people a little insight on what potchards are.
They're the true diving ducks. I as a biologist nerd, like one of my license plates is potchards. If you ever see one driving around, that's me. But yeah, that's the true 5 diving ducks. Yeah, most of the other diving ducks people talk about are actually sea ducks or stiff-tailed. So yeah, potchards to me are the ringers, the 2 scop, the cans, the redheads. It's good fun. I carve all my own decoys for those. We pull out the double barrels. We go old school and have some fun.
So, that's awesome.
But yeah, but my big message to folks is, learn more and teach more people about stuff. I had a lot of fun taking folks out hunting all the time, but even just talking about birds, us hunters know a lot. Try to learn the facts a little bit more and share it with more people. Like a lot of our predator work is due to predator populations that are artificially high, just things that we as normal human nature have been, predators for decades. And the system's kind of out of whack. And you look at stuff, for example, ravens, they've increased about 1,300% over the last 30 years, and that's due to a lot of the actions that we do. So, even people that don't need to go out and kill their own meat, they're still interested in having a good environment where wildlife thrive. And if you start telling them these stories, they don't necessarily have to go out and start shooting stuff next to us, but at least, when decisions are getting made and things are on the ballot or policies are changing or whatever, they're like, hey, this isn't really good for some of the things I'm interested in. And little do they know they're actually locked in arms with us. Like, for example, raccoons were not on the prairies until the 50s, and they showed up in about a 10-15 year period. And, they ran all the way to the boreal forest very fast. And it's all we could go on and on with stories about predator expansions, but there's a lot of things out there that are really hurting wildlife that aren't too hard to fix if more people were aware of it. So, tell your stories, talk about how healthy wildlife populations are exciting, whether you're a hunter or not.
Very well said.
Yeah, I would like to add one last thing with that, on the predator expansion, right? Like there's this quote from Thomas Sowell. He's a economist, but applies to all of life. There's no such thing as solutions. There's just trade-offs, right? So when you have something like that might seem inconsequential, like, I mean, depending on who you are, like ethanol subsidies, not to pick on ethanol subsidies, but like pick anything, right? Well, that might drive more corn to be planted, and you don't know what the downstream effects of that are going to be, right? And so you end up with raccoons all the way to the boreal forest with a changing landscape. And it's not pointing fingers or any specific person's problem or blame, but it's just, you have to understand what are the downstream effects of our decisions as people, and how can we then observe those downstream effects and refine that balance when things get out of whack.
Love it. Ray, thank you. Hey, Ray, thanks very much for commenting and watching the show. Appreciate it. It's been go ahead, Kurt.
It's been awesome having you guys on. I've learned so much tonight in a short amount of time from you guys. It's incredible to hear the depth of knowledge in you two gentlemen, and your passion for it is great. And I'm a diehard Delta waterfall guy. Been that way since we started the chapter 12 years ago. And great organization, great two guys on the show tonight. The knowledge that's sitting in this room with you two guys is incredible. And I hope to have you guys on in the future to learn more, because I think we can do more shows and be more target specific rather than all over the board. So,
well, speaking of having them on again, maybe we ought to have them in the kitchen and they can teach us how to spatchcock a good duck.
Yeah, I need your best recipes for these diver ducks, Chris.
Olive oil in Montreal, man, and fast and hot.
I love it.
Fast and hot's right.
I love it.
Fast, hot, and bloody. How about that?
Before we go, I have one last picture to show. I hope it kind of sums it up, but I feel like we have our ducks in a row. The only problem here is I put that on Facebook. I snapped that picture in Bemidji, and people kept texting me, they're not ducks, they're mergansers.
It's true.
Is merganser not a duck?
Merganser is a duck.
Yes. So we had our ducks in a row.
You do have ducks in a row. You're sea ducks in a row.
Right. You're one for one on your arguments tonight.
Yeah. Yep. Well, you can't win them all. That's for certain.
Yep. No. It's definitely a duck. It's a diving duck, and it's also a sea duck. So you got them all covered.
Wonderful. Well, I'll tell you what, fellas, it's been fantastic. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule, because I know you hunters are crazy busy. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right.
Yep, that's fun.
Thank you. All right. Well, there we go.